are getting outside to enjoy the beautiful weather that we're having. It's really important that you go outside safely, of course, and that you continue to exercise and try to stay positive. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge how weird this time is. I'm 57 years old and I've never seen anything like this, and it's really quite, unsettling for a lot of people. And it's really important that we try to maintain positivity and try to keep going, and that we remember that this too shall pass. So it is a really difficult time for everybody. Plans have been turned on their heads. Some of you are expecting to graduate and go off on OPT. We all really don't know what to expect and what to hope for in this circumstance. And we want to make sure that you know that we're here to help you as we all figure it out. The uncertainty is really stressful, but we are in this together. So please don't hesitate to contact us. Continue to contact us via iAdvisor, or you can call the GO main line at 277-4032 if you want to talk to an advisor. We are scheduling appointments on the phone. You can do it via Zoom if you like to see people face to face, or Skype for business as well. If you are feeling really overwhelmed, which a lot of people are right now, it's probably pretty normal for people to feel depressed or anxious. I really want to remind you that you still can get help from the Student Health and Counseling Center, so that's SHAC. And they are taking students virtually as well, so you want to look at the SHAC website and call the SHAC telephone number, which is 277-3136. And you can talk to somebody, you can talk to a counselor that way, and they also have virtual means of doing counseling delivery. So we're taking your questions now. In case you're tracking it, it's really hard to believe, but we only have 2.5 more weeks of classes left in this semester, and then 1 week of finals. So hopefully you all are keeping up with your classes online. I know it's a lot harder. I personally was taking a Portuguese class, and still am taking a Portuguese class, but I know that it's a lot harder to do online than when you're going to class every day. So I recognize that that's really difficult to do, but we hope that you're keeping up with those classes and you're remembering that we're coming up here now in 2.5 weeks on the end of classes. Today in the U.S. would have been tax day. April 15th every year is the taxes due day. So in case you're not aware, the government did postpone the tax deadline till July 15th, so you have a little bit of time to do that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in this broadcast. So I'm sure a lot of you are trying to figure out how you're going to make it through the rest of the semester, what your next steps are. If you're like me, all of the weeks starts blending into one when you're at home most of the time. So we're going to try to spend some time here in this hour answering questions that you may have, and we'll start with some of the information that we've already sent out and that is on our website or that is in your email that you would have received already from the GEO office. And I don't know, I'm looking at questions from people who aren't even in the country, so hi everybody, wherever you are. The first thing I was going to cover was what are you going to do if you're going to leave the U.S. in the summer? So how do you get your normal travel signatures and new immigration documents? So normally at this time of year, if you've been here for a while, you know that we have travel signature days and we dress up in funny costumes and we stand in the front office and hand out snacks, which we can't do, which handing out virtual snacks to all of you. But what we can tell you is that if you're going to go home before the university opens back up, you want to email iAdvisor and tell us that you need an I-20 with a travel signature. For those of you who are on an F visa, the government has allowed us now to do e-signatures and to scan and send you those documents. You should know that it's only us that are allowed to do that, so you shouldn't be scanning your own documents or forging anybody's signature. But we can send you an e-copy of your I-20 with a signature on it if you're going to go home in the summer or you're planning to go home in the summer. And you're going to have to print it. So you don't want to just have it on your phone. You're going to have to print it when you go through the port of entry, but they are accepting the e-signatures. And those are either our physical signature, which is on the PDF, or an e-signature. We're doing physical signatures on the PDF. If you're on a J visa, though, the Department of State is still requiring us to send you original documents. They're not allowing us to scan and email those documents to you. So if you're on a J visa and you're coming back to the U.S. after the summer vacation, we're going to have to print and mail you the document. And we are still coming into the office a couple days a week to actually do that print and mail physical documents. One thing you want to remember if you're planning to travel home over the summer, and I know a lot of you are kind of, your plans are up in the air, as is normal. Right now, most of the embassies and consulates around the world are actually closed. We heard word a couple of days ago that some of the embassies in China may be reopening now. One thing to know is you need to go look at your immigration documents, look at your passports, look at your visas, make sure everything is still valid if you are going to travel. If your visa is not valid and you're going to travel out of the U.S., you're going to need another visa before you can come back in. So you're going to need to make an appointment at the embassy or consulate, and a lot of those are closed right now. But many of those still have their appointment system open. So you can go in right now and schedule an appointment for July and later on in August. Or in August. So it depends on the embassy, so you want to go and check it out, but you can go check out their website and schedule an appointment right now because it's going to get really crowded with all new students and everyone trying to jam into those few appointment slots that they have. Hopefully you have a valid visa, and so you can travel just with the immigration document that we give you. So again, if you're going to need a visa, you want to pull out your documents now if you are planning to travel. Look at them, make sure they're still valid, and then you can request a new I-20 with a travel signature or a new DS 2019 with a travel signature by emailing iAdvisor. Did anybody, Yvette is here helping me. We're maintaining a safe distance, but wave Yvette. Do we have any travel questions that people are asking before we move on? Okay. All right, so hopefully, again, we don't know what's going to happen with borders. There have been some executive orders right now. If you're coming from China or coming from EU countries, you still cannot enter the U.S. If you've traveled to those places. But we expect that will change shortly. All right. So next topic other than travel is course and enrollment requirements for spring 2020. So one thing you might be wondering is, do you still have to be a full-time student? And the answer is yes, you still need to be a full-time student. So you still need to maintain 12 credit hours per semester if you're an undergraduate, 15 credit hours if you have the Amigo scholarship and you're an undergraduate. If you're a graduate student and you have no assistantship, it's 9 credit hours that you have to maintain. And if you're a graduate student with an assistantship, it's 6 credit hours that you have to maintain. So you want to make sure that you're still completing the semester with a full-time course load. Now, a lot of you guys know that that you're normally restricted with the number of online classes you can take. And that restriction for this spring semester has been lifted. So we know that all of your classes have moved online. We have reported that to the Department of Homeland Security. So you've been authorized to finish the semester online. So you should not be concerned about that as well. So that's really important to know. The other thing that's going on with the course and enrollment stuff, and you've probably gotten all of this information from your instructors already, is that a lot of instructors are offering a credit, no credit option, which is basically a pass-fail grade. So right now, if you haven't taken any action, you're going to receive a letter grade for your courses, either A, B, C, D, F, right? So you have the option, and through the end of the semester, to decide if you want to change that grade mode to credit, no credit, which is pass-fail. And that's a special exception that's being given for this semester. So what you want to do to assess whether or not you should pick pass-fail is figure out how you're doing in the course. And you can have this conversation with your instructor by email. If you're doing well in the course, there's no reason to select the credit, no credit option. If you get a letter grade in the course, your regular GPA will be calculated with those letter grades. If you're not doing well in the course, you may want to select the credit, no credit option, and you want to get credit, of course, because you want that course to count towards your degree requirements. And for this special semester, it will count towards your degree requirements if it's a course that you're taking for your degree. It will also count for scholarship purposes. So you want, if you feel like you're not getting as good a grade as you would like, if you select the credit, no credit option, you're actually going to, that course will not factor into your GPA just for this semester. And that's being allowed for this semester. It's also being allowed for scholarships, but the expectation is that you're going to get a credit, which is a pass. And if you get a no credit for at least the Amigo scholarship, you will have to petition to keep the scholarship. So again, you have this choice of whether you're going to get regular grades or credit, no credit. If you're doing well, probably keep the regular grade. If you're not doing so well, you might think about credit, no credit, but you want to actually pass the course with credit. Okay. I don't think any of the... Somebody asked a question about 16 credit hours a semester without paying extra fees. So if you're talking about, somebody asked a question that says, are we allowed to have 16 credit hours a semester without paying extra fees? There is some discussion right now. So some people have enrolled for summer classes, and all the summer classes right now are moving to online formats. And because they are officially online formats, there is an online course fee associated. It's a $100 course fee. Right now, that fee is being stuck to, but there are some discussions underway about whether or not that fee could be waived for summer classes. For the courses that are continuing on for spring semester, which you started in person, there, to my knowledge, no special fee being charged for those online classes. All right. Somebody has a question here about issues updating their direct deposit. I'm not really sure what that is. What you should know is if you're getting paid and you want the direct deposit to go to a different bank account, you most of the time can do that on your My UNM under your Employee Life tab. If for some reason you can't do that, you might want to contact the appropriate employment unit. So that would either be student employment if you're doing an hourly job, or graduate studies if you're doing an assistantship. You can still call those offices or email those offices and somebody will respond to you. It might take a little bit longer period of time. All right. So a few tax and work-related issues that I wanted to get to before I answer the rest of these questions here. So the tax deadline has been extended till July 15th. Yvette and I and another volunteer have been helping people with their taxes remotely, so students are still proceeding with their taxes. If you can, you really should still be working on your taxes now. You need to make sure that you have all the materials together. And these things are still being processed. What you need to know is if you are a non-resident for tax purposes, you do have to still print the paper documents and mail them in the paper mail via the U.S. Post Office, which is still open. You're going to have to mail them to the IRS. That's the tax people. You have to mail it by July 15th now. On the day of July 15th, postmarked on that day is just fine. So you should still work on it now. We sent a message on March 16th, so that's some time ago. You can look for it. It says tax issues on the message, so look for it in your email. We sent a message on March 15th, and on it we ask you to fill out a Google Doc, and then we're sending you the appropriate materials for your situation. So you still can work on those tax documents right now. Some of you were asking if you are scheduled to get the COVID relief checks that have been in the news. That's the $1,200 for U.S. taxpayers. Unfortunately, the answer is no. Those checks are being issued to people who meet the criteria and who are resident taxpayers. That information was in that last message that we sent out last Friday, which was an update on a variety of different issues. So you should not be expecting a check from the U.S. government unless you were a resident taxpayer, which means that you've been here, if you're a student, for longer than 5 years in student status. In terms of work, we are starting to process curricular practical training authorization, that's CPT work permission, for people to do internships in their field of study over the summer. We know it's difficult to find a job right now, but there are students who are finding a work that's related to their field of study that's online or that they're still being hired for, or that's going to start later on in the summer. And you can go ahead and look at the work section of our website. So you go to go.unm.edu, look under international students, and then immigration and work, and you can find the curricular practical training instructions. If you have questions, then you can email iAdvisor or call the main GEO number 277-4032 to schedule the appointment. Or you can go to the chat, which is on our main page of our website. Okay, all right, back to your questions for a second. And this is back to a message that I sent on Friday with regard to the census. So a lot of you are getting mail. You probably got paper mail if you're living off campus, or you're getting email about the U.S. Census. The U.S. Census is a count that happens every 10 years in the U.S. of every person who's living in the U.S. So that does include you as an international student. You have to fill it out if you're not living on campus. If you are living on campus, the dorm residence assistants will do it for you. But if you're living off campus, you have to answer this per household. So if you are living in an apartment with other students or a house with other students, you need one person in your household to actually answer the census questions. So you should have received paper notifications in the mail. You may be getting email about the census from other UNM offices that are helping out to advertise the census. It's really important because states are awarded money based on the count of people in the state, and programs are financed for different kinds of minorities or low-income people based on the answers that you provide on the census. The census does not ask you for anything like your social security number or your birth date, so you should not give out personal information via the census, to people who are calling and saying they're from the census. So there's also a lot of scams. This was also in my email. There's a lot of scams going on right now because the census is going on and people are confused. So there's scams related to the census and related to taxes. So the best thing to do in terms of the census is to just go online. It's Census 2020. Let me find the actual link here. It's my2020census.gov, my2020census.gov, and you can proactively answer the questions. Once you've done that, you should expect that no one further is going to try to contact you. You've done your part. You are legally responsible for answering the census. There are some confusing questions on there. There are questions about race and ethnicity, which might be confusing because you're not used to the U.S. categories for those. You want to do your best to answer the questions. A lot of people say when it asks you your race, you respond how you would be viewed by other people when living in the U.S. So if somebody who is a U.S. person would see you as of African descent or of Hispanic origin, you want to check those boxes. In the mail that I sent to you all on Friday, I listed some sites that you can go and look at how that information is being used, so you might have a better idea on how to answer it. And I think it takes about 15 minutes to answer, no more than that. So it's pretty quick to do. As I mentioned, be aware of the scams. There's a lot of people calling. No government agency is going to call you and ask you for your personal information. The only time you should be giving out personal information on the phone is when you have initiated the phone call. So you're calling your bank or your credit card company and you need to access some of your account information. They're going to ask you for personal information to verify who you are, also for your health insurance. But you should not give any of that information out on the phone. If somebody is cold calling you, somebody's calling you without any initiated phone contact from you. Okay, here's a good thing that was in one of my messages, was in the message on Friday. A local immigration attorney, his name is Olsi Vrapi. He used to be an international student here at the university. He is offering free legal immigration consultations for this month only, so till the end of April. If you are a person on OPT, so I know that we have at least one of you who's on OPT, which ends in August. If you are wondering what your next steps are, or you have a complicated situation, you have some questions that you need to ask about your immigration status, your status is ending and you're not going to be able to travel, all those kinds of questions would be legitimate questions to ask in this free consultation. So please go refer back to that email that was sent on Friday. If you want to just Google them, it's noblevrapi.com. So it's NOBLE. V like victory, RAPI.com, and then it's schedule a consultation. So you can just say that you're a UNM international student and they're doing free consultations for the whole month. If you have left the U.S. or you're planning to leave the U.S., we do want to know about that. We sent you a link to a Google Doc to report that information to us, and many of you have done that, so thank you very much for that. So we know that in advance.
Let me write something down then.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So please do tell us if you're planning to leave. And especially if you're not planning to be full-time, you need to have that conversation with an advisor because that does impact your immigration status in the U.S. Lobo versus Census?
Lobo Village.
Oh, somebody asked the question, if they're living at Lobo Village, do you have to fill out the census? And the truth is, for Lobo Village, I'm not sure. So ask the Lobo Village management if they are reporting it. I know that with Casas del Rio, they're on doing the count just like they would a normal dorm. I think Lobo Village might be expecting you to answer the census on your own, but you should verify with the Lobo Village management. And Yvette seems to think that also with Lobo Village, they're also reporting.
I saw a video yesterday where they were saying that you're counted through Lobo Village.
Okay. So Lobo Village is also counted as part of on campus. So you don't need to answer the census if you're part of Lobo Village. Okay, I want to spend a minute talking about financial hardship. We understand that this is a really difficult time financially for a lot of people. If you haven't been watching the news, there's more than 17 million people in the U.S. who've applied for unemployment insurance, who've lost their jobs or temporarily lost their jobs. So we know this is a really difficult time for everyone. And UNM is aware. The Bursar's office has adjusted some deadlines. If you were on a payment plan or you're still on a payment plan and you need to stop the payment plan because you don't have the funds in your account, you do need to contact the Bursar's office, so bursar@unm.edu, and you need to ask them to postpone or to stop the payment plan right at this point in time. Registration for summer and fall has begun, and they are allowing people to register with a balance from spring semester. There were 2 different deadlines. This week, students who had a balance of less than $1,500 were permitted to register. And I believe next week, those who have a balance of more than $1,500 will be able to register for summer and fall semesters. Under normal circumstances, if you have a balance on your account and you get to the first week of the next semester, so the first week of summer enrollment, if you're enrolled for summer, you would normally be dropped from your classes. We don't know yet what's going to happen with, this is called enrollment cancellation. We don't really know yet what's going to happen with enrollment cancellation. So if you're able to pay your spring bill, you want to try to do that. If you're unable and you're registering for summer classes, please be aware of that enrollment cancellation. If that goes through and you don't pay your spring bill by the end of the first week of summer, your summer classes may be dropped. So you need to know that and be aware of that. That's the same situation with fall semesters. So if you are enrolling now or you have enrolled for fall semester and you haven't paid your balance by the end of the first week of fall, you normally will be, your enrollment will be dropped or your enrollment will be canceled, and you would lose your class enrollment. So you need to keep that in mind as we go forward and figure out what's happening with balances from spring semester. If you're having real trouble meeting your basic needs, so food and rent, there are a few scholarships that exist for those that are small, for those kinds of expenditures or those kinds of financial issues. If you're having trouble making ends meet, buying food, please email iAdvisor and we'll send you information about what resources are available that we know about for satisfying basic food and rent needs. And people are asking about different work options right now, which is also a part of the financial picture. As I mentioned before, if you've been a student already for one academic year, that's 2 academic semesters full-time, you can apply for curricular practical training if you're an F student. You can apply for academic training if you're a J student. That kind of work permission has to be related to your field of study, and you have to have a job to apply. But if you can find a job, it's very doable, very easy for us to authorize. The information about curricular practical training is on the work section of our website. On-campus employment is still an option, but you should know that because of budget cuts that were already predicted for next year, as well as this current situation, which is expected to further hit the university financially, along with the whole country, on-campus jobs are going to be probably even less available than they have been up to now, and everyone knows it's typically difficult for international students in particular to find jobs on campus, at least initially. So I don't unfortunately have very good news in that department. Some people early on were sending around information about a special kind of work permission called severe economic hardship. This is a kind of work permission that exists for F1 students. It has existed for a very long time. And it's not a great option because it costs $410 to apply, and it takes 3 months for the application to be processed in the mail. If you have no other options and you can demonstrate severe unforeseen economic hardship that didn't exist prior to this situation, you might qualify to apply for it. To get this kind of work permission, you do have to wait for it to be authorized, and it's not quick. So I don't want to be overly positive and optimistic about that, although it is an option that exists for people. Okay, so Yvette, do we have any more questions?
Just scoot up here, see if you could read them, or see look at
Okay.
Amanda's.
So somebody couldn't find the tax letter that was sent on March 16th. I will send it again. It definitely went out to all students that are currently enrolled. If you're on OPT, it may not have gone out to you, but I'll send it out again to everyone who's an active person. And it basically just had you filling out a Google document. So stay tuned for that. I will send it again if you haven't already finished your taxes.
That's this one. Muna, what did you mean by when you said, what do you recommend international students do for spring? Oh, I see, for spring 2020 graduates. Well.
Okay, so if you are supposed to be graduating for spring 2020, it really depends on whether you are an undergraduate student or you're a graduate student. Graduate students have a lot of flexibility in terms of determining their end date, especially since most graduate programs are not coursework only programs. They're programs with something like a thesis or a dissertation. So if you are still working on the thesis or dissertation in your program and you want to extend your program through the summer so that you can take more time to complete the program, that might be an option for you. For undergraduate students, you basically have less flexibility because you're usually enrolled in programs, you're always enrolled in programs that require coursework completion. But if you would like to postpone your graduation, what that means is that you would actually have to enroll in the next semester. So if you're going to postpone graduation, you would need to enroll again, either for summer, if you were going to finish in summer, or for fall. If you are wanting to consider that option because you don't know what your next step is going to be and you're feeling very uncertain, you do most likely have some options in that department. I would email iAdvisor or call the front desk. Again, 277-4032 is the GO number, and schedule an appointment to talk to an advisor about what your options are. If you really are going to go ahead and graduate and you're not going home and you haven't already applied for another graduate program and you haven't already applied for optional practical training, you really do need to be thinking about your next step. So next step, if you're graduating and not going on to another program, would be to apply for optional practical training. We are still doing those appointments virtually, and that requires completing a bunch of paperwork and one form that your advisor needs to fill out from your academic department, and then you need to schedule an appointment with a GO advisor. And again, same way to schedule an appointment, contact iAdvisor or 277-4032. Somebody's saying they can't hear. I'm trying to talk loudly, but so I think there was another question, maybe from Deanna, about whether or not the
Nehan's question.
W-2 could be sent an electronic version of the W-2. So we have to, if you are a non-resident for tax purposes, you cannot e-file. So even though we are giving you access to an online software program that helps you do your taxes, you still need to get to the end of the software, print out the appropriate documents, put them in the paper mail with a paper copy of your W-2. Now, somebody asked if they could use an electronic copy of the W-2. This year, UNM moved to a system where you could request a W-2 e-version. And so if you requested that e-version, when you go and log in to your myunm.edu and you go to the Employee Life tab and you click on Tax Documents, you should be able to see a virtual copy of your W-2. So if you did not opt into the electronic W-2, you probably need to get a copy, the copy that's just a picture of it that's on the MyUNM. If it's not a real, if you didn't request the official e-copy, that's probably not good enough. So you want to email pay@unm.edu and find out how you can get another copy if you don't have one. Okay, so let's see. There's another question.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
This guy's asking if it's F1 students or non-residents, when do they become residents for taxes?
Okay, so if you're an F1 student and you have been in the U.S. as an F1 student or on a student visa, it's basically F, J, M, or Q visas. If you've been in the U.S. 5 calendar years, and it's not a whole 365-day year, it's any day in a calendar year counts. So let's just take, for example, let's say you started in January 2018, but you arrived here on December 30th, 2017. 2017 would be your first year of non-residency for tax purposes. 2018 would be your second year. 2019 was your third year. 2020 is your fourth year. 2021 is your fifth year. So you wouldn't become a tax resident until 2022. So that's the rule for a student. If you change into a work visa or different kinds of visas or a permanent resident, it might be a different count. But if you have not been here for more than 5 years, you're a non-resident for tax purposes. The only exception to that would be if you are married to a tax resident, you can file jointly as residents, or if you have a tax treaty that allows you to file as a resident if you select to do that. And those are only, there's only 3 countries, that's Jamaica, Hungary, and Barbados. So, somebody else is asking about a social security number. So if you got your social security number and you need to report that, you can email us. The one person who is reporting this, I got your email. I haven't had a chance to respond yet.
Someone's asking about working in the summer.
Okay, so summer work, if you're in F1 status or J1 status, you're allowed to work on campus if you can find a job. If you want to work off campus, you have to apply for some type of off-campus work permission. So to get some type of off-campus work permission, which for F1 students, the most common type is going to be called curricular practical training. For J1 students, it's called academic training. It has to be a job that is in some way related to your field of study, and you have to have been a student for 1 academic year. So if you just arrived in January to the U.S. for the first time as an F1 student, you're not going to qualify in the summer. If you arrived in fall 2019 or earlier, and you've been a full-time student at least for 2 semesters, you are going to qualify for curricular practical training. So if you can find an internship that's related to your field of study, you can go ahead and apply for that kind of work permission as well. I don't know what other kinds of summer work people are asking about. Obviously, this is going to be a really big unknown for this summer because we still don't know exactly when we are being authorized to get out of quarantine and to come out and go back to work. Although some people are finding internships that are remote, and that is acceptable at this point in time. That question was asked to immigration, and it is acceptable to have an online job if you have work authorization to do it. So what you need to know is that international students normally are only authorized to work in campus jobs, which is jobs for UNM or for an entity that provides services to students. Okay, other questions? I see, what is this one here? Okay, someone is asking if they're graduating in fall, or they may graduate in fall, but their visa is expiring before then. So I just want to remind you that as an international student, you have to have a valid I-20, or if you're J, DS 2019 form, as long as you remain here as a student, and you have to be maintaining the full-time requirements for study, or you have to be on OPT or academic training work permission. But your visa doesn't have to be valid. So if your visa expires and you're just staying in the country, you do not need to get a new visa to remain here legally. You just need to have a valid I-20 or DS 2019 form, one that's not expired, and you need to be following the student rules. So if you have an I-20 that's expiring in May, you should already be replying to Yvette. She's been emailing everyone asking you to submit some extension paperwork. That form that she emailed you has to be signed by your academic advisor. It gives an estimate, a new estimate of when you're actually going to complete your program. You show us finances and we extend the I-20 document or the DS-2019. But your visa doesn't have to be valid unless you're going to be trying to go out of the country and come back in again. Then you do have to have a valid visa to enter the U.S. The only exception to that is if you're coming back from Canada or Mexico, you can come back in if you went there for less than 30 days with an expired visa and you didn't apply for a visa while you were there. So that's a little tricky, but basically you can stay here with an expired visa. That's not a problem. If people ask me, do I advise travel this summer or not travel this summer? This is going to be a difficult summer for travel. So if you're on the fence about whether you should go or not, consider that it might be very difficult to get back in if you do go. But I don't want that to really stop anybody if you have some real serious reasons for actually needing to travel. Okay, any other questions here? Sorry, trying to look. Okay, somebody has OPT that is ending in August, and they're starting a new program in the U.S., and I think it's here. Yes. So if you are finishing your optional practical training and you have been admitted to another degree program, or if you're finishing one degree program and you've been admitted to another degree program, as long as you have a new I-20 or a DS-2019 for that new program, within 60 days of your old program ending or your OPT ending, as long as you have that I-20 and your program is going to start within the next 5 months, you're okay to stay in the U.S. You don't have to travel out and come back in. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, let's see. What else do we have? Okay.
A lot of people are asking about the stimulus check.
Okay, so the stimulus check, people are asking about the stimulus check. That's that COVID-19 relief that I was talking about. You do not qualify if you are a non-resident for tax purposes, unfortunately. So in the message that I sent on Friday, it basically referred you to the IRS website where it says who qualifies and who doesn't. You have to be a resident taxpayer, you have to not be a dependent on somebody else's tax return, and you have to have filed taxes in 2018 or 2019 as a resident. So if you have that on file and you meet the other income requirements, you will get a check, but most of you are not getting a check, right?
Tell them that it gets direct deposit, however they filed.
Right. So if you filed your resident taxes, not non-resident, so most of you this doesn't apply to, but if you did turn into a resident for tax purposes and you filed with direct deposit information last year or this year, they're going to direct deposit that. If you filed and asked for a check, they're going to send you a check, and they'll send it to the address that they have on file for you when you last filed. All right, what else do we have? We have, let's see, there's a lot of questions on here, but I think I answered most of them. Somebody asked if you could do the census online. Yes, absolutely. Do it online. Do it now so they don't have to bug you. Don't do it via the mail if you don't want to. Just go to that.
There's like no consequences if they file and someone else filed, and you know what I mean?
You mean the census? Yeah, there's no real big deal. If you fill out the census and somebody else in your household also fill out the census, they will match them up because they'll do it by address. People are saying hi and miss you guys too. Let's see. I think, do you have any questions over there, Yvette?
I've kind of been answering them.
All right. Oh, somebody is asking if they are on OPT for 9 months and then an H-1B for the rest of the 3 months, do they file as a non-resident or a resident? That's going to depend on how many years you were here before while you were in F1 status. Most of the time, for only that 3 months, it's probably going to be that you're still a non-resident if you were a non-resident in the prior year. All right, what else? Anybody have any more questions to ask us?
You know, for more specific questions, just email iAdvisor so we can kind of tailor it towards your situation. Oh, shoot. All right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and somebody else is asking, I guess it's W-2 and they're out of the country, so just email. If you need a W-2, email pay@unm.edu. That's the payroll office. There's also, if you have questions about your forms, you can email pay@unm.edu if it's employment, or tax@unm.edu if it was a scholarship that you received. All right.
All right.
Yvette, do you have anything else you want to add?
Miss you guys. It would have been International Festival tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow would have been International Festival, so we're all sad. We're all I kind of feel like I'm in a time warp. It's very odd. And again, I really want to encourage people to get outside because at least the weather's beautiful. At least if you're here in Albuquerque with us, the weather is very nice. We hope you stay safe and that you stay sane. And if you really need to talk to somebody, counseling services is still seeing students, is still communicating with students, doing virtual appointments. It's really normal to feel anxiety about this situation. I think the whole world is feeling that. We don't know what's happening next. And all we can say is that we're here for you. We're experiencing the same thing. We want to... we're sending our thoughts and are with you, and we really hope that you'll contact us if you need something.
All right.
Okay.
And
All right.
we'll try to do more videos so we stay in touch with you guys. So.
And we're going to try maybe to do Zoom so we can get more people who aren't on social media on as well. But anyway.
All right. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Cool.
Okay. Finish.